There you go. That should work now. Dun, 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 dun. Give me 10 seconds. Work now. Dope. All right, let's do it. So we're in week 2, right, of interior design. So what we did, I haven't really touched this since last week, right? I kind of wanted to leave it alone. Main reason being, I want to keep this as simple as possible. You know, for a lot of people following along, you know, I don't want to kind of go too far into modeling and be like, you know, like losing people essentially, right? Just like usual. For those of you that are following along and participating, do your thing, right? If you're like a lot better at 3D, and you really understand what's happening, that's fine. I kind of want to keep it simple to where even the people that might be doing like 2D drawing or whatever it is, right, following along, can understand what I'm doing, right? So with that in mind, we're going to be diving into adding, I guess, more detail, right? We understand the macro, you know, side of everything happening here. You know, we have the layout, we have the positioning and understanding of, like, you know, when we go into, oopsies, did I close anything? All right, cool. When we go into this space, right, we should kind of feel like we're kind of, you know, we're trying to create that understanding in scale and just kind of layout and getting that right first, right? We have parameters in terms of how this place should kind of be, right? We have the understanding of why we want to see through the back window and why the layout's the way it is and stuff like that. Now we want to start designing the kind of more important areas, right? Because in an environment like this, there's some things that we probably won't be seeing, so let's not focus there, right? I think a big problem that we run into with 3D is we get a lot of we get an overlook on everything, right? So like, you know, all the chairs will get the attention, the back rooms get all this attention. You have all these things in there that you know, I guess really does take up a lot of like time and effort to make all that stuff. But in reality, you really only have like 1 or 2 shots, right? So for me, I need to find a shot that is going to encompass kind of what I want, right? And what I want is something along the lines of maybe something like this, maybe a little bit lower, to feel like we're kind of sitting at this table essentially, right? Because I want it to feel like we're sitting at this restaurant. So I really only need, you know, this area here, and then you know, maybe some of the kind of kitchen in the back view right there in that window. So just kind of understand that for everybody, right? Your environment's going to be a little bit different, but do what is necessary, right? I think a lot of times, because there's so much freedom to be like, oh, hey, what's the underside of this table look like? Let me do some cool lighting. Let me do some like purse hooks and, you know, all sorts of things, right? At the end of the day, we'll never see it, you know? And this is something that happens in production a lot, where when you're working on a production, you know, there is things that they'll tell you to ignore because, you know, it's not really important that we see it, right? It's, you know, it's not really important that we have like the floor kind of figured out, because we never actually see the floor in the shot, or we never see the chairs, or we never see the back wall, right? But it is important to know that there's a chef, in this case a robot. There's a robot kind of doing the thing, and then you can see his station, you know what I mean? So we want to make sure that we're in scope of kind of what we're designing. This way it saves time, it saves effort. And if you want to proceed further, right, you know, let's say this project kind of works out pretty well for you and you're like, oh yeah, let's expand on that more. You already have the base, and then you can go in and model the rest later, right? I can figure out what that backside looks like. I try not to do anything extra that's gonna waste time, because at the end of the day, right, you only have a certain amount of time to do stuff. So you might as well just put it where it's necessary, right? It's kind of like where you're doing those stats on characters, right? You're like, you know, trying to min-max certain things, you know what I'm saying? So, all right. Nope. Let me hold on. Let me fix something real quick. Boom. Wait, not this one. I need this one. There it is. Let's turn that on. There you go. Cool. So, with that in mind, right, I'm gonna kind of start doing the robot today, right? I have a little bit of a block out. I've been playing Mega Man Legends lately. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's an old game, right? It's let's see. Hold up, let me do that. And I was thinking, oh, maybe that could be like one of the inspiration points. I'm not gonna like right now. It's actually pretty close. It's pretty similar. But I do want to start changing that from here, right? I just want to get a block out in there, just get something kind of, I guess interesting set up, and then we'll start adjusting the design to kind of make what we need to make happen, right? Because there are some things that he has or he does that makes him particular to his design. And so on and so forth. So I've just been playing this game in my free time, in the I guess little amount of free time that I do have, because I kind of missed out on it as a kid. So I just kind of want to like just see what it was like, right? And so this is me trying to bring in things in my life that makes decisions unique, right? Like I've been saying before, whenever we're doing projects and stuff. Right? Do things, be part of stuff. You know what I mean? Like do things outside of just drawing, because when you do, those inspirations come in, right? I didn't really exactly know where this robot was gonna go, right? Up until like a couple days ago. And I was just like, oh, maybe it could be a person, like a it's like dressed like a person and everything, and then there's like a monitor for a head type of thing, or so on and so forth, right? I didn't really quite understand where I wanted to go with it, but then I was just playing a game. I was like, that's kind of cool. I like the form language, right? It's kind of like this more basic blocky kind of robot, very like I don't know. It feels like a first gen type of robot, right? Everything's very simple. Everything's very like very basic, right? It's just kind of joints and sockets and stuff. And I wanted to kind of maintain that feel, because I wanted this to feel like it's they're trying to be as efficient as possible with their robot, right? They don't need the most dynamic robot in the world. They just need something that can do the job, essentially, right? And so that's what I want to do here. So there was also something else that I was kind of trying to play with in terms of just the idea going on here. I heard this this quote recently. I forgot who said it. It was a comedian or somebody said that politicians should wear their sponsors on their clothing like NASCAR, essentially, right? You know how like when you see a NASCAR, there's like Home Depot or whatever, right? Like sponsoring that car, right? And this is because of politics happening right now, it's very there's politics involved in the presidential election, right? And so with all that, you kind of hear some things, and I thought that quote was interesting, right? I was like, oh, that's kind of funny, right? It's it would be very funny seeing like somebody advocating for, I don't know, like tobacco or something, and then you see like Marlboro like kind of just across their chest or whatever, you know what I mean? But with that in mind, I'm not turning this to a political thing, but I thought that would be interesting for the spirit of what this project is, right? So for those that don't know, I'm creating a kind of omakase style restaurant, but I want it to feel kind of, I don't know, like not. It's like going the opposite way of what an omakase restaurant's about, right? When you go to a place like this, it really is focused on the experience, the one-to-one interaction between you and the chef. You know what I mean? It's very personal. It's very like, you know what I mean? It's a very curated I don't know, I guess experience for the restaurant goer, right? But I wanted to kind of flip that, right? What if somebody wanted to just turn this into a profit-making business, and they try to capitalize on that? So maybe they hired robots that could like Wi-Fi in, and then they're just operating the robot, kind of like how surgeons. I don't know if they actually do that, but I saw some technology where a surgeon could like remote in and do surgery from home anywhere in the world. And I was like, oh, what if they did that with like sushi bots, right? So it's something like that. And then now, right, really pushing that a bit further. What if you saw sponsors on the wall? You know what I mean? Like sponsored by like Sapporo or whoever, right? That would kind of be funny, right? It's kind of it really is the, I guess, the opposite experience of what these places really is, right? Because you'll go to these very like sponsored branded places, right? And every place has stuff like that, but really like kind of the antithesis of what this type of experience is about, right? Really trying to like lean in on, like, I don't know, that capitalism or something, who knows, but that is kind of where I'm going with it. And then yeah, we'll go from there. So I do need to create the head. I purposely left the head kind of blank for now, because I wanted to figure that out on stream, as well as kind of give an understanding as to kind of what we're going for here, right? So let's do it. Yeah, Darren said not as welcoming. Exactly, right? It just feels cold. It feels like a business. You know what I'm saying? It's just not as like I don't know. There's something. It just feels wrong, doesn't it? And that's what we're trying to aim for. It's like, what's gonna feel the most wrong in a scenario like this? It's like, imagine going to this place. It's very curated. All of a sudden, you see, like, I don't know. You see the like Jollibee logo or something, or you see like McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? Like, what the hell? So I thought that'd be kind of fun. Let's see. I actually need to rotate that knee. How's everybody's week? How are the things? How are the kids? How's the lives? I know it's been quite a week, depending on what side you're on. But it is what it is.
How does it feel watching this stuff from Japan, Kenny? I told my wife, I said, like, it doesn't really matter what happens. I'm gonna kind of enjoy it, because there's gonna be freakouts no matter what. And if you're into, like, I don't know, if you pop popcorn over internet rage, then this is your week,
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely still a citizen, so there is a bit of concern on some regards, to certain things, but I mean,
Certainly.
it is what it is, man. It's nothing. 51% or whatever it was. Actually, no, I think it was like way more than that this time. Wants a certain thing, so we'll see how that goes. I think the states have a lot more problems than our president. Regardless of like what side, like no matter who was gonna come in, there's a lot of problems to solve. So, so But
For sure.
But being across the pond, it's interesting. It's different, right? Because there's some things where I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that doesn't affect me anymore. So that's kind of it's a different change. But I'm also wondering, as like a business owner, kind of like how this will affect me as well. So it's a weird one. Let's see. Boom. Do we need a back? Oh, dude, bro, let's go. Look at that. He's got like, see, little things like this. So when we're designing, right, we're just trying to like, I'm trying to keep this as basic as possible, but I do want to show like little things to kind of help make this feel, I don't know, like it has the same vibes, right? Because robots don't need like that kind of dip in the back, right, where your shoulder blades and stuff kind of are. And then even like the shoulders themselves, like they don't really need stuff like that. They need the hinge, but they don't really need that. But like, just trying to find little instances like that to give us, I don't know, a sense of, oops, I need to turn that off. Sorry. A sense of just like relatability, anything you can do, right? And, looking up like, let's see, omakase chef. See, like anything you can do to kind of make it feel like these people, right? So now at this point, I had the basic block out of what I felt a shape could probably be like, right? Because it's the base proportion feels humanoid, right? It's not human, but it's humanoid, right? And then now it's like, well, how do I start making little design changes to make it feel like they're a certain way, right? Especially like seeing a lot of them have either shorter sleeves or rolled up sleeves, right? Because they're cooking, so they don't want that to get in the way. And there is, usually some sort of like jacket-esque thing that they have on. And some of this stuff we can do in graphics, other things we can do with shapes, right? And this is where, when we're designing, this is that micro kind of understanding. At first, it was like, I just need a person in a space, right? I just need like, you know, just something to say, oh yeah, that's a dude inside of the thing. Like clearly there's an understanding that's what that is, right? Now it's, well, how do I make it, how do I convey an idea? You know what I'm saying? How do I push the understanding of, you know, what the job, what the understanding is for this robot essentially, right? Because even though this is a robot and we know he doesn't have sleeves, right? He doesn't have shoulder blades. He doesn't have these things. It doesn't mean that we don't need to represent that, because as people, we need something to relate to, right? If you had this kind of like, I don't know, like kind of spider robot, and it might be more efficient, right? It might be something that's like, because it has 8 arms and it's like, you know, pressed up against the ceiling and then it's just kind of doing its thing. Like it could be cool, right? It could be more efficient than a machine with 2 arms. But what's the vibe we're going for, right? Because that's would be a little freaky, right? It's a little scary to kind of see a giant mechanical spider making food for you. That's a certain vibe that it could be good for certain places. Probably not for what I'm going for. But yeah, right. And so now looking at this, I have these kind of bigger arms. And the reason that I did that was because I wanted that kind of Mega Man Legends kind of feel, right? But with what I just saw, looking at, where's my guy at? Where's my boy? You know, they all have rolled up sleeves, or, you know, there's an efficiency to it. There's an understanding of like, they need to do that for, you know, either hygienic reasons or just mobility reasons or whatever. And so now I need to change the shape to match that idea. I don't need to add a physical sleeve, but I do want to adjust the shape to make it feel like there is a rolled up sleeve. So something you could do, something like this, right? If I grab this, made some sort of cut here, made another cut right here, boom, 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 right? Let me turn off the walls, sorry. Scale that down, something like this. Scale that down, right? It's not a rolled up sleeve, but it starts feeling like one. You know what I'm saying? It's little design choices like that. Mark sharp, that's what I want. Where's that line at? Actually, hold up. Oh, scale that. There you go, much better. So it's not like, it's not a rolled up sleeve specifically, but now doesn't it feel like he has some sort of like bunching at his elbow area, and in which case starts becoming, you know, a rolled up sleeve. And so little design choices like that, right? When you design, we're trying to hit an idea, right? We're trying to push certain understandings. We're trying to convey meaning, right? The reason why we have hinges where the elbows on a human should be, right? Like for example, if you don't know, the rib cage, right? This is just a cylinder, but the rib cage on a human being is where your elbow starts. So if you actually mark your elbow, right, your elbow, right, match it to where your side is, that's the bottom of your rib cage, right? And so with that understanding, when I design this, I'm trying to create a relationship between the two. So I kind of marked this kind of block right here as like the bottom of the rib cage kind of feel, right? And then I kind of mark the elbow at the same section, right? Same with where the arms go, or the hands go. The hands end up in the kind of middle of your thigh. The wrists are kind of at your hip area, right? And so obviously these are a little bit long right now. I haven't done the hands yet, but you know, it's already set up to where the hands would be, generally speaking, right here, right? It would be something along the lines of, can I grab this? Let's see. So, you know, it'd be like somewhere like here, right? Obviously, they're just spheres, but, you know, you get it. It's like I would have the hands somewhere in that area, and then that kind of marks out where those things go. Because when you have a robot like this, it could be literally anything, right? Like, the mechanics of all of it. Could be something that we've never seen before. It could function in a different way. And depending on what you want, right? I want the vibe, the feeling of this robot to be like, oh yeah, he's still a human. He's still like a person. Maybe it's like a little bit just kind of mechanical, right? It's because the humanoid shape for humans tends to be a bit friendlier than a non-humanoid shape, right? It's not that it doesn't work. It's just that it just depends what kind of vibe you're going for, right? That's why horror movies, like if you kind of like look at a lot of the kind of like disfigured type of horror, right? It's scary because it's something that is so like different to us. You know what I'm saying? So cool. I want to do. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out this design. Let's see. Anybody have any fun things that happened this week? Any questions? We're kind of in the demo zone right now, so if you have any questions at all, definitely hit me up. I do have some topics I do want to talk about, which hopefully is fun, but we'll get to that later. You know the drills. Boom, boom. Oh, that's kind of cool. Should I go this way? Is that weird? That's not weird. Wait, hold up. Oh, by the way, for everybody that isn't on Instagram, so we dropped the ebook for the digital vegetable, undiscovered lands book. So if you are interested in that, if you go to my website, kennyvoart.com or kennyvoart.com, my website, by the way, if you go to shop, the book is available, right? It's available to download online. This book, we had a physical run of it. We sold out of it at Lightbox. The demand was pretty high, surprisingly, which, thankfully, a lot of people really wanted it. And we sold out of the physical book. I can't sell any physical books right now, but I did say I was going to release an ebook version. So this ebook version, there's it's the same exact book. And it's just kind of walking through the ideas and understanding, right? A lot of, everybody involved, all of these students here. Some of them are students, some of them are professionals at this point. They're all part of the digital vegetable group. You can tag them, you know what I mean? You can like ask for that. One of them's here. You can message them, ask them about the projects and various things like that, but they all did an amazing job. Really support these artists, because these are the people that are, up and coming at this point, right? But this book is meant for students that are kind of at all levels, right? Trying to what we really wanted to show was the understanding that when you know how to draw and paint, what is the difference between certain artists, right? Every single one of these artists had the same prompt. It was Undiscovered Lands. And they took the projects in 17 different ways, right? Each one because of their experiences, because of their likes and dislikes, because of their interests and various things like that, all had a different spin on the same idea. And when it comes to entertainment design, right, this is really what it's about, right? This is what makes you hireable versus somebody else. Because once we all get to the same level, right, there's a bar that we need to be at. When it comes to being able to draw and paint. Well, what is it that you're drawing and painting, right? Because a lot of these people here can be hireable over someone like me, right? And vice versa, right? It's not really about skill anymore. It's about, what do you have to say? What's your interest? What's your kind of outlook on life? How do you see things, right? And so we really wanted to focus on that, really push those ideas. So if you are a beginner level student or anywhere in between from beginner to advanced, right, definitely check out this book. It's a really great book, and all profits go to the artists involved, right? It's just on my platform. So, but they're the ones getting the money. So definitely check that out. But yeah, you can buy it here, and then maybe one day in the future I might do another physical run. That has been a question I've been getting a lot. But at the moment I just can't hold stock just because I'm somewhere else. So but yeah, so I'll make a more formal post about this in the Discord probably after the stream. So if that's something you guys are interested in, and so on and so forth. So cool. All right, let's get back to it. Let's see here. I need a head. That's what I want. So I wanted to kind of save this moment for the head because I wanted this to feel, I wanted to kind of like walk through some of my design decisions, right? There's there's a there's a mentality that we want to get into as we're designing, right? And so with this robot, right, it's going to be something where I want it to be a projection of the chef that's like kind of like, you know, wirelessly calling in essentially, right? He's worked from home, but he's a chef, right? And so I wanted this to kind of feel like almost like a dismembered kind of head, essentially, right? And so I want the robot to kind of be the way it is. It's a more primitive shape. It's definitely just like almost like just the core essentials, essentially, right? And then, you know, maybe do an actual video recording of, or like a video call essentially of, you know, whatever chefs like currently using that robot, right? And so I wanted it to feel like, because I was thinking about, I mean, you know, a TV is a head. It really isn't that crazy. That's one of the more common internet sci-fi things. You know what I mean? But I actually got this idea from what was it? Umbrella Academy. Umbrella Academy fish guy. I don't know. I forgot his name. But I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. You know what I mean? Something about it. There's a charm, right? You can think it's cool, whatever. But the whole point being, this is kind of where this idea kind of inspired from, right? Oh, what if it feels like a screen instead, right? And so I'm gonna make that happen, and I wanted it to feel very separate, right? So the form language, I want to feel a little bit different. I want it to feel a little bit different because I wanted the body to be a bunch of cylinders, right? I want this to be rounder, friendlier, right? It's more of like your stock standard robot, and then there's the difference in understanding with the video playing, the fidelity, right? It's going to be just a video of a real person, right? Not like a real person in this illustration, essentially. And then it's going to be a screen kind of playing. So there, I wanted that attention to really be like pulled there. So when I start this design, right, I want to start with a shape that already stands out. I don't want to start, you know, I don't really want to start with a cylinder, right? If I did something like this, boom, rotate 90. Let's do something like that, right? And it's not that that can't work, but it does start feeling like the shapes are all the same, right? And in most cases, you might want that. You might want something that has a similar language to the previous thing that's already there. In this case, the body. But in this case, the understanding is I want that separation, right? I want that deliberate, you know, friction between the two opposing parts. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, right? So hopefully that makes sense. This is something where there's rules, right? Where, you know, when you have form languages, if you have like, you know, like a beveled cube, right? Like, you know, this is like the typical sci-fi. You have a square, you cut off a corner. It's like sci-fi, right? When you have a form language, you should, generally speaking, repeat that form language over and over again, right? Every time you do it. And it's the same exact thing we did here, right? Where we have, you know, cylinders, and then we have like rounder shapes, you know. And so overall, every shape here, obviously, I guess except for the knees and the elbows, right? They're generally speaking the same type of shape, right? It's just a rounder cylinder-esque kind of shape, you know, ball and socket type of thing, right? And then after that, you would think that that shape would, you know, you would want to replicate that for in a normal case. But this is where when they tell you, oh yeah, you know, we have there's rules and we can break it. As long as you know why you're breaking it, you'll usually be fine, right? So a little bit of that, but yeah, let's see. I want this to be like a old TV inspired. Boom. Is that too big? Did you guys plan on an old TV? Some of you guys might have, but maybe I'm just old.
I have a old box TV sitting downstairs.
Is it work?
Laundry room. I don't know. My last memory of it was playing Static.
Nice.
I have one in my room.
Do you have one in your? Do you use it?
Yeah, occasionally. Like,
Nice.
Eric will come over. I'll play Silent Hill 1 and 2 on there.
Nice.
I just have to find the copies.
Damn, classics. That's cool. I know lately, I don't know, I'll say lately, but last, I don't know, maybe like couple, like maybe the last decade, the gaming, I don't say not gaming, the maybe it's just the fighting game community, who knows, but they're really like kind of like diving into like the old CRTs and stuff, and there's like this whole thing, you can even buy like new CRT TVs, right? Which is fun. Like, I'm not gonna do it,
What?
but you know,
They make them?
I think they still do in some instances. I think they're like super expensive though. I think it's like weirdly expensive to get one. But I just because it's like such low batch numbers that they're making them in, you know. But who knows?
Some like I can't play my wife's Nintendo 64 on our 75-inch TV. We actually have to play it on like a smaller, older TV. It's not like this old, but yeah, there's definitely like use cases for these old displays.
Nice.
That's sweet.
Yeah, those are
More
the
than just
best.
The vibes.
It's funny, like, because I was diving into retro gaming. Shit, I'm doing it right now. I'm just doing it on my phone, but, you know, I was, maybe a couple years ago, I was really getting into older games. And it's funny because I'd play it on my TV, and, like, it works, right? Like, you know, I could get it to work and everything, and the emulation and all that stuff that I was doing worked fine. But the issue was, it's not how I remember it. You know what I'm saying? Because I played it when it came out. And, you know, you could see, like, the pixels and stuff like that. And there's just something about the older screens and stuff that, I don't know, really, like, feeds into that nostalgia. You know what I mean? All right. So,
Like an artisanal feel.
yeah, right? It just doesn't, like, it's too new. It's not how you remember it, you know? And it's like, I remember, because I modded a broken Game Boy before I got a classic one that was unmodded, essentially, right? So I bought a broken one, fixed it up, and then I basically kind of started from there whenever I started modding older electronics, right? And so when I did it, I just got the newer screens. I got it, you know, everything was working out nicely. And when I got it, I was like, oh yeah, this is how I remember it, right? And then I came across one, and I got it a little bit later, that was still working, so everything was fine, and it wasn't a backlit screen, like we didn't have that at the time. And I remember I was like, oh yeah, this was it, you know. But in my memory, it was that newer like LCD screen that looked all cool and stuff. But yeah, now it's like it was crazy seeing the differences, you know. So all right, check it. So I have a thing, right? I got a thing happening. Things are going. So what I want to kind of really point out here is I had an idea, right? And I don't want to say I fell into this on purpose, right? Is, you know, I mean, I did plan for it to go this way because I wanted to make more of a lesson out of this. I had the idea, I was like, oh, what if I had a TV, right? What if it was like, you know, something, and then you could like see it, because I wanted that older technology, right? Because even especially with a robot like this, you know, even with like the Boston Dynamics stuff or all those kind of robots, they're a little more sophisticated. So this is an older style of doing, I guess, some sort of like robot thing, right? And I wanted like a TV head type of idea, and I started going that way, right? And what I want to show is it doesn't quite work, right? There's something about it. There's something, it's almost like too off, if that makes sense, right? And so I made this thing because I wanted to show what could happen whenever you, I guess, fully commit to an idea too much, right? And this is the difference between going for the I guess, going literally, right, with what you're trying to design, and then having the feeling of what you're going for, if that makes sense, right? And so, for example, when I said we could do like sleeves, right? We need that rolled up sleeve kind of feel with his arms. I didn't physically add a sleeve and then roll it up, right? That's not how that works because he's not wearing clothes. So, it'd just be weird that he randomly has sleeves. So you make a form that resembles sleeves or has the same kind of feeling to it. There's a bunching of material in certain spots, usually away from the wrists, right? So that's why that looks that way. And then we talked about having that different form language for the TV and having, it's like a screen that you can like see the face of the dude, whatever, right? But now it stands out a little too much. And that's because we went with a more literal approach. So what I want to do is do a halfway between what we're doing with the sleeve here, where we're matching the exact form language, and then a literal TV, right? Because you don't want that much separation. Because at the end of the day, the mechanic that made all of this does have access to the same parts, has access to the same things, and you want to try to hit the vibe of what's going on. You want it to feel like an old TV. You want it to kind of stand out and have a slightly different form language, but you don't need to have it exactly like an old TV. This happens so much. I promise you. This is something that that especially in freelance and stuff like that, when I'm interacting with artists and stuff, I'm not saying that like happened recently or anything, but like I'll be like, oh hey, just kind of do something like this, get the vibe, and then they just literally take that, throw it on, right? And it won't work that way, right? I think sometimes with clients, you might kind of like kind of get that understanding, right? Of like, oh, they said add this, so I added that, right? But what I really want everyone to really take from this is understand that you want to represent something as as more of a tone, right? As a feeling rather than the literal translation of, because if you get too literal with things, it oftentimes doesn't really work out too well, right? So, but yeah, just kind of want to show that. Nothing really that crazy, nothing like, hopefully it's like pretty basic to understand that. It's like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. But, sometimes it's not so easy to kind of see that sometimes, So, let's see, let's rotate that. Does that work better? Bro, is that what I'm talking about? That is what I'm talking about. Let's see. Cool. He feels a little more natural. All right. So with that in mind, I want to take this and I want to kind of get it in a better spot that kind of matches what I want, right? So I'm going to leave this aside. I want the same kind of vibe. Basically what we're going to be doing is taking this TV, right? Because the understanding is this could be an old box TV, right? And then we're going to make it with the same manufacturer. It's not going to be the same exact product. This TV, I could imagine being like a different monitor or something. And then there's like, well, here's a robot, and they just attach it. And there you go, right? But what I want to do is kind of get a halfway between. So what we're doing is, at first, it was, we're just kind of doing TV plus robot. Now we're doing, if you do the math, right? This TV plus that form language equals X, right? Equals whatever it ends up being. That's what we're going for, right? So I'm gonna move this aside and then we'll kind of get going. Let's do this for real this time. I won't say for real, but Coob. All right, I'm gonna start the same way. I'm gonna kind of get something that's generally in the kind of realm that I want, but I'm going to start giving it, I guess, different proportions and various things like that. So like maybe a little bit rounder, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying. Boom. Nope. Actually, what if it was like more vertical? I'm trying to think, like, if you had a head, if you were like a video, right? Just like in my screen here, like the sides don't really get used, right? Especially like if you're looking on YouTube, right? The side views here, there's nothing there. I'm just in the middle, right? So what if we did a more vertical format? So you kind of just zoom in and get just that head part. You know what I'm saying? It's like an Instagram video.
Are you doing the design exploration in 3D, or you already have a sketch or something?
Nope, I'm doing it in 3D. I'm just figuring it out and seeing how this goes.
Okay. Do you think is a good thing to do it or to avoid when you're searching for design?
If that is a good question, right? I think it depends on how strong of a designer you are, right? And I want to say that very carefully, right? Most early professionals and down, right? Everybody, early professionals and under, like your first like 2 years, I would highly recommend not doing that, right? Just because you can kind of get tied into the wrong things if you're not very disciplined about designing, right? And understanding kind of what you need. I would highly recommend against it, just because I guess it can cause more problems than it solves, essentially, right? But with that in mind, if you are somebody that is comfortable in 3D, just kind of know what the parameters are, right? Like, because I don't want to stop anybody from doing it, right? That's something I want everyone to understand. If you do things that way, that's fine, right? Just know what the kind of like the holes are that you're gonna run into. You can get too tied into like, oh, this kind of like joint here, how does this connect? How does that back kind of resolve? Stuff like that. You can get tied into that a little bit too much, and that causes problems. That causes issues where you're kind of focusing on the wrong things, and then you kind of end up with issues that you're spending too much time on needless parts, essentially, right? So that can happen for sure. But just understand that, if you pay attention to those things while you're designing, you should be fine. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of maybe. A lot of like, if you're cool with it.
Are you thinking right now almost like you're sketching in 2D, like as a are you using like the design rule the same way you're doing when you're sketching in 2D, but you're applying those rules in 3D? I don't know if I explain myself.
Yeah. So it's the same idea, right? I'm trying to figure out, because what I want to do, I keep like, for those that for those watching, right, you can see that I keep clicking into orthographic view, right? Because I'm trying to see what that shape looks like, right? And I'm trying to maintain like what the profile is, how the head sits on it. Right now it's kind of straight. Once I'm finished, I'm going to rotate it like that, like how a head normally sits, right? But I'm trying to, I guess, understand what the silhouette is doing first. That's why I extruded this part out. I kind of made the block first. Now I'm trying to inset the face and trying to, add things to make that feel like, whatever it's supposed to feel like. And so I am thinking in 2D, but I'm just doing it in 3D, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Cool.
Thank you.
But yeah, for everybody, right? This process that I'm doing right now, I don't want this to be something where it's like you have to do things this way, you have to, whatever, right? This is just how I work, right? I started my career doing, working in 2D, right? And I still do it. I did line drawings fucking yesterday. And it's something where you want to just know how to go about things in the most basic manner, right? You don't have to always do things, but those skills transfer, right? For a lot of people, when you start in 3D, it's usually too much tool for a lot of people to handle, right? I use it all the time, but that's because I have a whole background in doing things in 2D and I understand that process. That's why when you see things like I'm like bashing pieces, these pieces, like this knee pad there, the kneecap thing and the elbow, that's the same piece, right? The arm pieces is the same as the leg pieces, which is all derived from that middle torso, right? And so when I'm doing all these things, I'm just bashing pieces around to keep my form language consistent, right? And that's pretty standard with 3D people, but that came from my 2D background because I was doing that in 2D. And so the process is exactly the same, right? It's exactly what I'm used to doing. For everybody, when you design, right? Design it you want to design with certain principles in mind, right? Understanding what the graphic reads are, understanding what the form language is doing, right? A lot of people get really tied into like, oh, let me see how this let me see how this hinges in, let me see like all these details and stuff. And it's like, I just need the basic robot. I need it to feel like a guy first, and then I get into all the details and all the stuff kind of associated with it. But until then, right, I am just making basic shapes, right? I'm just trying to create, you know, just a general understanding of what this is supposed to look and feel like. So just kind of know that, right? It's, yes, you can design in 3D, but you know, most of the time it's too much tool for people to kind of handle. So it's like it causes more damage than you would think, you know. Cool, sick. All right, I need something. Hold up, check this out. So I like this, like, you know, a lot of chefs have like that hat, you know, especially like even like sushi chefs have this kind of thing, and it creates this block on top of the head. So I was like, oh, you know, I had this initially as like a bottom chin area because I wanted there to be a speaker right there, right? I wanted it to be something where they could kind of like talk through it or whatever. But I did like that forehead idea, right? So I was like, oh, what if it was something like that? So then you start getting the understanding of like what this thing is, you know what I mean? Like it gives you, it's the same idea behind what I was doing with the sleeves, you know what I'm saying? Like I was just trying to push certain shapes and certain form languages to kind of get a certain vibe. And so what if I just kind of made the screen something like that, and then you have this bigger piece that kind of, I can separate out the colors or whatever, do whatever I need to do to give it that understanding, right? So maybe that might work, who knows? But that's the kind of things going on in my head. I'm not really too worried about details because we'll get there. We'll get to the small cut lines, we'll get to the seam lines and the screws and all that stuff. But for now, getting something that looks halfway decent, right? Something that hits the vibe we're going for. So actually need to flip that. Actually, it needs to go this way because this TV is sideways. But that's dumb though, right? Maybe we'll go down. We'll go like that. Maybe the TV is like that. Actually, the back of the head actually goes this way. That's cool. I dig that. All right, let's keep it rolling. Let's see here. Cool. Now, let's get some stuff happening here. Let's see. Boom. I need some, I have like the basic block, which I'm, you know, more or less okay with. And then we'll start getting into like how to make this like fun and interesting. Set origin, geometry, rotate. I wish there's a way to like, is there a way to like easily correct the shape placement on this? I don't know if there is. I don't know if that's a thing. Like just reset all the parameters. I think I already applied all transforms, so that might not be possible. But that's why I'm a chump. That's why my 3D skills suck.
There's got to be a plugin for that somewhere, and that's one that I think everybody could probably use.
Yeah, right? Just be like, oh yeah, reset to normal, reset to like access or whatever, you know what I mean? That should be a thing. I need like an ear. Oh baby, let's go. Hold up. Transforms, mirror, edit, generate, mirror on the y-axis. Cool. We're getting somewhere. We're moving. What else do I need? I need to start. Maybe I need some. I'll do wires later. Wires are dumb. I don't feel like messing with wires right now. But let's talk about some stuff. So this is we're at November 14th, right now. I think something that I usually bring up, I think I did this last year too, but I usually bring up towards the end of the year, is that there's like waves of hiring for artists and stuff like that, depending on what kind of industry you're in, depending on what if you're in like theme park versus like games versus animation, stuff like that, right? Something that I kind of noticed this past Lightbox. I've known of this phenomenon for a long time. But something I wanted to bring up was, I did a lot of portfolio reviews, right? And something that was consistently happening, something that like it's just always a thing, right? Is when you're showing your portfolio, what you really want to show is that you're a low risk investment. You know what I'm saying? Like when you're applying to studios, you want to be somebody that when you show them the work, it's like, oh yeah, like that person can do it, right? You know what I mean? Like, cause let's say you're hiring somebody, you're hiring a plumber, right? You're like, hey, my pipe exploded, and I need someone to like cut the drywall and then fix the pipe and then redo the drywall, fix it essentially, right? Do it all, and then the plumber that you talk to, what if he's like, oh, I do more of like this kind of stuff, or like, oh, I've never really cut drywall before, I've never really replaced pipes like that before, I don't really have those tools. You know what I'm saying? You probably won't hire them because. Why would you, right? Because that doesn't make any sense. And so the reason I bring this up is because I think with artists, there's always this this feeling of like, I guess our profession is a little bit different, right? Like we're entertainment designers, so there's a I don't know, like a the job is a little bit different. You know what I mean? Like there's differences to our jobs, but at the end of the day, we're just people that have a skill that can do a thing, right? And so now when you apply for jobs, really what you're trying to show is that you can do what they need you to do, right? So when I was reviewing portfolios, there's so many times where I would see a portfolio and then I'd see like a keyframe, right? It's like, oh, that's really cool. That keyframe looks dope, right? It's amazing. It looks great. And it's well painted and so on and so forth, right? And the next page you flip to a whole different project. It's just like some creature from something, you know what I mean? And the keyframe before is like a sci-fi thing or whatever. And so what happens is you get this very disjointed kind of approach, right? And they might be able to do it, but they just didn't show it, They just didn't show that they could, take a design, right? An inspiring design from start to finish, which usually starts with a keyframe, ends up with like call outs, right? Very similar to what I did for, sorry, I'm bringing up my website again. A lot of the stuff that we did for Transformers, it was like, hey, make a keyframe and then show off the things in the key. And this is like, these 2 pages is just what I wanted to show. I have like 15 pages of this, right? For every single prop has this, right? There's materials, there's callouts, there's close-ups, there's details, there's all sorts of shit, right? And I did it for every single one of these scenes, right? Every single thing, right? You'll see a scene with like, ore and some like machines and things like that, and then you see the actual like thing. I didn't show all of it because this portfolio would be massive. There's probably like 200, 300 images, right? But it's the understanding of like keyframe, finish, right? And then there's callouts to all this shit too, right? And so when you do this, you're really trying to show that you know what you're doing, because right now, right, there's a big, I don't want to say hiring frenzy, but at the end of the year, right, there's always a ton of jobs, right? Because it's the end of the year. They're trying to finish the stuff before the year ends, right? Usually around like December, mid-December is kind of when they start tapering that off, or the hiring's already done. Hiring like starts happening in like September, November, right? September, October, November, but then like the finishing of the work kind of finishes in like mid-December, because Christmas, New Year's, they don't work those times, right? Most corporations don't. And so the hiring kind of happens then. But, especially because like, if you're not finding work, if you're somebody that's, having trouble with these things and stuff like that, right? It's usually, it can feel like, well, I mean, they're hiring, but I haven't gotten any calls or anything. Like, are they really? You know what I'm saying? And I think really what you want to show is that you're a low risk artist because they're on a crunch, right? Even like jobs that I work, I ask, like, they'll be like, oh, hey, we're hiring people and so on and so forth. I'm like, oh, cool. What kind of artists are you looking for, right? And this, like, literally word for word, this is what they told me. They said, oh, you know the pace of our project, right? We can't really hire juniors right now because we can't really hold their hands and show them how to do things. We need kind of more senior level artists, right? And what that means, obviously, there's an experience level with some senior level artists, right? Because there's an understanding that they know how to do certain things, right? But it's not that they won't hire a junior. It's that it's a lot harder to hire a junior, right? Just because there's not a proven track record, but we have juniors on the project. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have people that are relatively new, when I was on a project, they're like relatively new to where, they might be considered a junior, right? And so you get this, what am I doing? Hold on. Flip. Maybe. There you go. You get this thing where, they're like, oh, we're really only looking for seniors. But then, like, they're usually open for juniors like that. But you really have to show what you're doing. There's a couple artists that I know that, was able to kind of break through that pretty easily, right? Because in their portfolio, they showed they showed that skill that people are looking for. And so for everybody here, right? Everybody listening, for either now or listening later, whatever, right? You want to be an artist that proves that you're a low risk artist, right? Because they don't want to have to worry about you. I think a big issue that happens is, you can like stress out your leads or something, because like when they give you an assignment, they kind of want to just disappear. You know what I mean? Like, they kind of want to just be like, hey, can you handle this? Great. I'm going to go handle some other stuff, right? And then they just give it to you, and then you process it, and then you send it back. And then it's just like, it's done. You know what I'm saying? And that would be, ideal. That's what they want. Every studio wants that. But if you show a portfolio that's like, oh, my line work's kind of sketchy, and then, there's a line work assignment, it's like, it just stresses you out, and you really don't need that because there's like 50 other things that you need to be doing. You know what I'm saying? So long story short, right? When you show your portfolio, really try to show that you understand what production is about. Illustrations and stuff are cool, right? And for everybody, like when I tell people to do portfolio pieces, a lot of it is keyframes. There's a big keyframe component, right? Anybody that's taken my mentorship knows that when you do it, we start off with keyframes, but then we break it down, right? The exact process that I did I already close it? I guess I did. But hold on. Boom. The exact process that I do here is the same process that I did for Blue Eye as well, for any studio that I've worked at for the last, like at least 7 or 8 years. It's always been this process, right? You create a keyframe. Doesn't really matter how you do it. You can do it like this one's more 3D heavy. Some of the Blue Eye ones are more 2D heavy, right? It doesn't really matter which one you do. But then there's a component to it where it's like, well, now break down the stuff in the scene, right? Show us the other things, because this is what they need for production to work. And if they see that, like, cool, this guy can do it. This person, this girl, this person, whoever, right, is able to handle this topic, and I don't really need to worry about them, right? That's the difference. Because if you're showing schoolwork, if you're showing like, here's figure drawings that I did, here's these things, and I know recruiters say this shit when they're like, hey, I'd love to see more figure drawings. I'd love to see landscape paintings from you. Unless it's like an actual lead saying that, don't do it. Just don't waste your time, right? I don't want to say it like that, but it really is a waste of time sometimes, where it's like they'll tell you something because that's just what they know, but they're not really the artist in charge, or they're not even artists themselves sometimes, and they'll tell you to add these things that just take up space. Like for me, I'll never look for that. The reason, because all I have to do is see your character designs and be like, oh, this person knows how to do figure drawing, right? Like you can tell, like if someone isn't able to do characters in good proportions, you can derive the fact that they probably don't know figure drawing that well. If if you show me an environment with bad color and lighting, I can probably assume what your, color and lighting skills are like. I don't need to see the proof of it if I have the source, right? When you see me drawing, when you see me doing paintings and stuff, for anything, did I already close it? I guess I did. But if you see me do anything, right? Oftentimes it's like, okay, he knows how to draw and paint. He knows perspective. He knows these things, right? So that's really all we're looking for.
Okay, I have a question about the call out.
Yeah, what's up, dude?
Can you go back on your website?
I can't,
or
man. It's gone.
You closed it.
I closed it.
Okay.
No, I'm just
So,
kidding. Here you go, dude. What's up?
The Transformers call out, they are really cool. The guide for the placement and the composition of the props in that, or
The what?
what your process, your thinking, how you compose like the these props in. There is a guide to put the props that way, or not?
I guess like
Like,
when I'm showing like the various pieces, like for example, there's like a shelf here and there's a table, like how I organize it,
Yeah.
and what I show,
Yeah.
right?
yes,
So you use 3D, right?
yes,
So when you use 3D, right, you're a concept artist, right? Obviously, we've done stuff. So like, you're a concept artist, and so when you do 3D, oftentimes you just kind of make things up because it's like it's your concept, generally speaking. So when I do concepts, right, I have to be aware of what the modeler needs. So whenever I do my models, right, like this whole thing was modeled out, right? The entire room was modeled out. Maybe I don't have it here, but I modeled out the whole room and then I painted it, right? And so when I did that, I understand kind of what's important, right? So for example, looking at this table, there's a pattern, like there's like 15 other pages associated with just this table alone, right? From the little like drills and tools, there's some hard drive disk things here, and there's like patterns. There's even the top panel, even how this weathering is happening. All that's called out, right? So just from what you're seeing here, just understand that it's only a fraction of actually what went into that project. But what I'm doing is I have a detail, like this is about the table. So I'm like, oh, cool. So I just need a close up of that table. So I just grabbed the table, zoomed in, and then showed them what a close up of that detail actually looks like. You know what I'm saying? Because they probably need to see that, so they can model the thing out. The light has its own call out. The stool has its own call out. Everything has a call out. So I think right now you're only seeing part of it because I'm only showing part of it. But in reality, it's everything. And like every single prop in here has a call out. Like that prop back there, this is the ore. These boxes have a call out. So it is technically all there. You just don't see it. Does that make sense?
oh, yeah. In a portfolio, probably we should make a lot of these things.
Yeah. So my like recommendation for most students, right, is 1 to 5, right? 1 keyframe to 5 supporting pages. You know what I mean? Supporting pages, like it could be a bunch of things, right? Like for example, let me go back. Man, my cat's being crazy now. Hey, what's going on? He's like whining. Anyway, here you go. So like, there's a keyframe, right? I don't say a keyframe, just mostly a showing off a prop, right? And then there is like one page here, right? There's one page here. I had a couple more pages. I just didn't really want to show it all, so I just condensed it down to 2, right? But then there was like the pedals themselves, and then the chair, and then there was something else. I forgot what it was. But you know, for every one keyframe, right? Every one showing off whatever something is, you want to show probably 4 to 5 pages of other things that go with it. This way, they understand like, okay, cool, we're selling the prop, we're selling the thing, and then it's the, hey, what's the rest look like, you know? And that's what a solid portfolio will look like, generally speaking, because you're inspiring direction, right? The keyframes, what they do is they inspire direction. They push the story, right? It's like, it shows us like, hey, what does this world look like if we paused it, right? And then there's the, well, then how do we build it? Now that we like the project, how do we build it? And that's going to give you the strongest portfolio, right? And you could do line drawings, you could do modeling, you could do painting, all within that, right? Because you could do call outs where it's like, for example, I have a image here which kind of serves as a quote unquote keyframe. And then I could have just did drawings of the steering wheel. I could just do drawings of the next thing. But I just chose not to because I don't really do that. So
And how about the sketches exploration for idea? Do you think it's a good idea to put in your portfolio? I'm not see none of them on your website.
Oh, totally.
Like
so,
really rough sketch.
Yeah, so I don't really do that too much. Not that I don't. I do it for every project, but I don't show it that much just because I'm not really, I don't really like doing it that much, to be honest. But yeah, no, I totally do that, right? So this would be like an exploration. This was like one day of work, right? Where I just did a bunch of exploration passes for a project, and you know, that was that. Same thing here, right? Exploration sketches, stuff like that, stuff like this. We had to do it in a weird angle because the camera angle in game was looking down at the thing, so we needed to see it that way. But the point is, when I did this, you know, like I don't always show it, right? Just like what I was saying with my Transformers stuff. There's like 10, 15 other pages associated with those things.
Okay,
I just
okay.
kind of save the main things.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So definitely do them and definitely show them as part of your portfolio piece. And remember, for everybody, right? My portfolio and my body of work, right, is gonna look different from yours, right? Just because we're not at the same kind of point when it comes to hiring and things like that. Most students, if you don't have like a body of work where you've worked in production or anything like that, there's a inherent lack of trust that studios will have, just because, you know, they've never worked with you before and you don't have a history of working. So, you know, it's nothing personal. It's just you haven't shown that you can do it, essentially, right? And so when you're doing this, you're trying to prove to them that, hey, I know how production works. I know what I need to do to kind of like, you know, make sure that the production stuff gets done. You know, I understand what we need in a production. So that's what you're trying to do. For me, I have titles under me already. I have a bunch of projects, you know, that I've worked for, so I don't have to prove it as much, right? It's not that I don't. Every once in a while, people do ask, like, hey, like recently as well, right? Very recently. They were like, hey, you know, we see that you have a lot of like keyframes and stuff like that. Do you have any line work that you could show us, you know? And I said, yeah, sure, here you go. You know, and I have a separate portfolio with that. But the reason I don't promote that side of me is because I actually don't like doing that kind of work. You know what I'm saying? Like there's some artists are really into line work, so they, you know, they really show line work, right? For me, I don't really like doing line work like that. Like I'll do it, don't get me wrong, but I just don't enjoy it. So I don't want to promote myself as an artist that does that. Does that make sense?
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, it's mostly laziness. I don't say I hate drawing. It's just, they They never want line drawings as a finished product, ever. I've never had a product where they were like, hey, the end work is a line drawing. They want you to start there. And then they go, oh, can we get that in color now? I'm like, we could have just painted that to begin with and we'd be done with this weeks ago. You know what I'm saying? But that's my own complaint. Because it's always like that. I mean, I don't say always, but like 90% of the time it's like, oh, hey, that looks great. Can we like paint that up now? Can we like, you know what I mean? And I don't know. It's always like, oh, you know, we do it to save time. But in reality, it's like, it's not really saving that much time. I mean, it could be, but I don't know. I never see the time saved. So.
Hey, as long as they're paying the invoices when they come in, you can do whatever.
Yeah, true that. So, you know, that's always a thing too. But yeah, I think showing it as well, right? It's important for them to know. It's important for people to kind of like see that you can. But yeah, it can be like that sometimes. Let's see. Hold up. I need a 3 paint. Boom. Delete that. I need to get this shoe. I wanted oh.
Kenny, earlier you were talking. You
Yeah,
were talking about hiring waves at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Is there not also a hiring wave kind of at the beginning of the year? And I don't know. I hear conflicting reports about that. Is that a thing in your experience? And if it is, when do you think that happens?
Oh, totally. Yeah, no. So hiring waves at the beginning and at the end of the year are totally a thing, right? The thing to understand is hiring waves are different at different times of the year. So like, for example, hiring waves at the end of the year tends to be more junior work, right? That's not always. I get hired at the end of the year too, but it tends to be easier work. And the reason for that is because the work that needs to be done is usually like labor intensive, right? Because they already thought of everything throughout the year. Now they have a mountain of work they have to get through. And then, they just need hands, right? They need adequate hands to kind of make something happen, essentially, right? So that's what that's about. Hiring towards the beginning of the year tends to be more senior level work. And the reason for that is because they don't have any ideas yet. Because this isn't the same studio, right? Usually if a studio's finishing a project in December, they might not always pick something up immediately in January. It's usually for like other studios that are like off cycle or something, right? They'll like pick something up or whatever, right? And so they usually want somebody that's a little more senior because they don't have any ideas yet. They don't really They don't really know, what the project's gonna quite be like yet. You know what I'm saying? So there is a difference between the two. It is. I do find that it's true, but just understand that there's a purpose for hiring at certain times of the year. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
Yo, my cat's like digging into that litter box. God, he's about to bomb me right now. So like, you guys can't smell it in the screen, but like, dude, it's like 10 feet away, and like I'm like, he'll do it during like meetings and stuff, and I'm like choking. I'm like just dying. I'm trying to like hold my like just a straight face, but like the smell just doesn't leave. I'm in the you guys can't see it, but I'm like in the side of a like a storage area, and so there's no like air circuit. It's like a pocket essentially, and the air just stays until I turn on the fan. It's terrible, but it is what it is. There you go. Cool. So I'm trying to bring in like just different ideas. I have the screen idea kind of there, right? We're gonna start increasing some of the design cues and stuff like that to make this cooler. But overall, like I'm starting to I want to bring in some of those chefy ideas, right? Same idea behind what I did with the rolled up sleeve. I'm trying to do that with like the shoes as well. Just kind of bring in that classic kind of Japanese chef kind of idea. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's coming. It's already bombing me, dude. My nose is burning. David says, hi, Kenny. Do you have any exercises that would help improve one's sense of design? I guess design as a whole, it depends on what you're looking for. I think something difficult about design is that you don't always do it whenever you're drawing and painting, right? Because when you're drawing and painting, right, you're see, I'm like distracted because it's toxic. Like my cat just like poisoning me right now. Anyway, when you're drawing and painting, you're not always designing, right? Because you're like, you know, doing plein airs, you're doing studies, you know what I mean? It doesn't always have to be something where you're physically designing something like a form language. So that's the hard part about design, is that you have to kind of force yourself to do it, right? Because if you're doing studies, like let's say film studies, you're doing like prop studies and various things like that, you're just kind of copying what you're seeing, right? And so the biggest thing to do is just design more. Just do it more often, because that's what's actually going to get you better. You're gonna do designs that like look dumb. You're gonna do designs that like, you know, really, I don't know, just are just whatever. You know what I'm saying? And you got to get through a lot of those. But every time you do it, you want to try to incorporate more and more ideas. So when I started doing this, me and a couple friends, we just sat down at a table, right? It's a big like fold out table essentially, because we're broke. And we just either you bring your laptop or you bring a sketchbook, whatever, right? Just something to put something on a page. And then we just picked 2 different things to combine together, right? It could be like broccoli and it could be like a car. Just boom, bash them, see what happens, right? And then the cool part though, the best part is that we were doing it with friends, right? And so what happens is you're kind of like looking around and seeing like, oh, I didn't think of that. I didn't realize that I could do that. I didn't realize that the broccoli has more to it than the shape itself. You know what I'm saying? Like you could think, like for example, broccoli is shaped like, you know, it's shaped like whatever it is, right? So like, you know, hold up. Shaped like, it has that tree shape to it, right? Boom, there you go. So it has that like tree shape to it, right? Sorry, that was dumb. That's terrible. Let's try harder than that. Boom. All right, broccoli. Cool, right? Broccoli has that shape to it. And so like when we're doing things like this, you know, the immediate thing you kind of see is like, okay, rounded, and then you see like these branches, right? And that's, you know, makes sense. And the broccoli stalk can go deeper, and then it can like extend further, so on and so forth, right? But then you start seeing like, oh, you know, when you eat broccoli, you kind of get gassy. I don't know. Maybe that's a older person thing. You know what I mean? But a lot of people do, right? It's not that uncommon. And so you can think, oh, gassy, right? What does that look like? What is a car that's kind of gassy? Like it's, you know, like a car like Mater. You know what I'm saying? Like Mater from Cars. Like I'm not saying he farts a lot or anything, but it's that Cars. There you go. What if that was what you derived out of this, right? It's like it has that kind of like old car, the engine's kind of like sputtering, and there's like this, like the freaking the exhaust just like pops, and there's like a big cloud of black smoke coming out, right? That could be one of it. And then the green, what if it's like the copper of the car is starting to, it's like a copper car, I don't know, maybe, who knows, but it's starting to oxidize like the Statue of Liberty kind of thing, and it just looks all like greenish, you know what I mean? And you're pulling all these different ideas from the broccoli to make it something else. It doesn't have to have the broccoli shape. It can have the ideas associated with broccoli. So then you start diving deeper and deeper and deeper, and you eventually learn how to design in a more abstract way. You're always starting off with simple direct shapes, right? You know, circle, square, triangle, right? Because that's how we start. But then as you're going, you start understanding round it could mean friendly, friend, right? This could be bad guy, right? Just because it's sharp, angular, pointy. And so then you start thinking, well, what if I derived, right? If these are the same, right? Then what if I use this keyword to describe my car or whatever it is? What does a bad guy's car look like? What does a friendly car look like, right? And so you start kind of creating shapes, creating ideas outside of the physical shapes that you see. And so that's how I would start designing. You have to intentionally do it. You're not going to get to that point by just randomly drawing and painting. You have to actively pursue it. Does that make sense? I think that's why it's so much more difficult oftentimes, because people don't realize that it's a thing that you have to like actually do, you know? Chaz says, I had this weird test for a job where my portfolio has environment pieces only, but still asked for a character test. Yeah, because, and this is a lesson for everybody. You have to kind of be good at most things, right? Just know that. You don't have to be amazing at it. You don't have to be the best in the world at all things, but you do have to at least know just a little bit about it, right? Enough to get you through. For example, right? Little things like little cues, like, you know, knowing where the elbow is to the rib cage, knowing where the hands fall, knowing where the apex of the shoulders starts, right? All these things, like the shoulder here, for those that don't know, there's the deltoid muscle that you have, right? And it falls in the middle. The point of it is in the middle of your upper arm, right? So the point right here, that deltoid, right, where it ends, right, how big that sphere is, ends up being the middle of the upper arm. You see that? You see that, right? And so when I'm looking at the silhouette from up front, it feels a little more normal, because you can have that smaller. You absolutely can, right? But it's not that it doesn't work. It's just that it's just different, right? And so when I do these things, right, I do know a bit about anatomy. I'm not the best in the world at it, right? I do understand proportions. I can be a lot better at it, but I know how to place things in a scene with a character in it. So most places, to be completely honest, they're gonna ask you, hey, you know, I see that you have a lot of portfolios, and could you do a test on some you have a lot of environment things in your portfolio. Could you do a test on some character stuff, right? It doesn't have to be amazing, but they kind of want to see where you're at, because you're not showing that in your portfolio. It's not that you need to always show like an amazing amount of characters, but we do want to see that you can put characters in an environment, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Just kind of know that, right? It is something that comes up pretty often. It's not uncommon for places to ask you to do character work in an environment job, because you kind of need to be able to do all of it, right? It's not like you don't need to be the best, but you know, at least like decent. You know what I'm saying? So, all right, let's see. Yeah, because like I think especially like because people I've worked with before, they're like, I don't do characters at all. I'm like, oh, that's weird, man, because they're gonna ask you. You know, they're like, I can't do it. I don't know how. I've never done this before. You know, it's like, yeah, I mean, you never done it until you have to do it. You know what I'm saying? So, just learn how, right? You don't have to be amazing at it. You don't have to be the best in the world at characters. But you can't be a one-dimensional artist that doesn't know how to do anything else, right? And for everybody, right? Like as you're growing, as you're becoming better artists, understand that the journey doesn't stop whenever you get your first job, right? Like I think for me, you know, I got in with my first job doing environments, right? That was like, you know, as a student, I'm only expecting you to be good at one thing, right? You need to be good enough to do the job that I'm asking you to do. But once you get that job, right? Once you're in, you should probably start branching out a little bit, right? And you could do it in a couple different ways. You can branch into more 3D, right? You can branch into animation. You can branch into VFX. You can do whatever. It doesn't have to be characters. But you want to be able to offer more somehow, right? Because it's going to get you a more diverse pool of skills. You know what I'm saying? Because when you're, let's say you're struggling to find work, right? Like a lot of people are now, you know, you have the ability to like say, oh, hey, yeah, I mean, you know, there's no concept work right now, but let me do some animation. Let me do some storyboards. Let me do some, you know, some of this, some of that. And then, you know, you're employed for the time being at the very least, right? And that's what matters, right? Sometimes, especially in the beginning, you don't have the freedom to just say, I'm only going to take environment concept jobs for this specific type of studio. I'm not saying for students to like, you know, abandon what they're doing and just pursue just that idea, right? But what I am saying is have a skill set that helps you kind of stand out amongst the rest, right? Just something to say that, okay, yeah, you know, I'm not amazing at character work. I'm not amazing at storyboards, but I can do it, right? I might not charge like a full rate, right? When it comes, like, I'm not going to charge whatever storyboards charge. I'm not going to charge what animators charge, but I can take this job that's asking me to do something. Because some people that ask you, like, they don't really know what you do. They don't understand what the hiring field is really about, right? Because they'll be like, "Hey, you work in animation. Can you do some models for us?" Right? They just know that animation field has models in it, but maybe they don't realize that it's a different job. And it's in that case, right? You might have to say no because you don't know how. But you could be like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it for you." You know what I mean? And just ask them what the parameters are. I had a meeting with a client, and they asked me, it's like, oh, hey, so I know you're a concept artist, but like, are you able to model at all? Are you able to like, you know, make some models for us? And I told them straight up, I was like, hey, I'm not a modeler, right? I'm not, you know, if you're looking for models that that work, right, in a production pipeline, you know, I'm not your guy. I straight up told them, I was like, hey, I'm that's not me, right? I can't do that for you. Because you know, if you tell him you can, you better be able to, right? Because, you know, that's not a good idea if you can't do it. But I told him just like, hey, you know, I could model something, but it's not going to be really production ready. Somebody else has to clean that up and optimize it and all those things. But I can create models like this where it looks pretty good and I can paint over on top. So if you need a proof of concept, I can give that to you. If you're just like looking for an actual modeler, then I'm not your guy. And they said, oh no, we're just looking for proof of concept. We have our own modeling team. We just need some things. But it needs to be in 3D because we want to hand that off to the modeling team so they can do their stuff. I was like, oh yeah, perfect. That's what I always do. And they just didn't know that that's probably something that that we do all the time as modelers. You know, just because maybe they're not familiar with what I do in animation or various things like that. You know what I mean? They just don't know, because why would they? They do their own thing. You know what I'm saying? So it's wearing a belt. What's up, dude? Let's go. Boom. I'm just trying to add details. I just want this to feel more complete. Cool. Thanks for hanging out, Jacob. Peace. All right, Discord. How's it going, guys? Can't just be here and just be silent. How's it? How are the things? How's the process? I haven't, Michi, so can you animate, Kenny, or you haven't explored that much of that side? I haven't done animation specifically. I have done previs stuff. So like, for those that know, but like previs is it's different, right? It's not the animation, not like the in-betweening of the parts, but they kind of just block some things out. I have done that. Right, I had a job where they just needed me to block out some stuff for the animator, so they can kind of see how it's supposed to move and how things are supposed to go. I even animated some stuff for Transformers, where I was showing them how something would transform. Right, it was like the ground plane was like doing something, and so I did stuff like that. But that's not animation, right? It wasn't like a final product that you see in show. It's just it was just like a proof of concept, just to kind of show the next person in line. And that's kind of where a lot of our concepting skills really come in handy for those types of things. I think it can be very, I don't say confusing, but very like it can feel like we're only really supposed to do concept art, right? Because it's like, you know, we're told that, hey, you know, we need concept for this thing, so you do a drawing and painting. But concepting doesn't always have to be for like a 2D application. You know what I'm saying? Because sometimes doing a quick movement, right? Just doing some like just quick shots that show how this thing moves, transitions from A to B to C to D, right? That becomes important as well. And it's kind of, it feels like it's out of the scope of what we might want to do, right? Because, you know, we don't really do stuff like that. But oftentimes you'll find that it's like, oh no, it's totally in scope. It's just like a different application. And that's where having the skill to kind of, you know, just do those things really becomes a big deal. You know what I'm saying? Like just being able to do a little bit more than what you're used to doing, essentially, you know. So I haven't physically animated before. I don't know if I want to either. Actually, that's a lie. Lately I've been wanting to get into a little bit of animation. Not like crazy animation though, just like I have some painting ideas that I had in mind, and I wanted to kind of do that and try to show some of that stuff. I could do 3D, and I could. I don't know 3D well enough to do that though. I think my skill set in 3D, like this isn't the cap. This isn't like the skill bar that you know that I'm capable of doing, but it's not far off. You know what I'm saying? Like it's I'm not that good at 3D. For anybody that knows 3D watching this, it's probably terrible. You know what I mean? But it's good enough for what I need. So. It is what it is. I want something else. Hold up. How do I... I'll figure that out later. The cool part about a lot of this is like, I just go, yeah, I'll figure it out in 2D. I'll just, you know, I'll address that later, you know, so. I only cried a few times when you're doing some stuff, filling faces. Yeah, man, it's it gets the job done. There's a lot of stuff where I'm like, because at work I work just like this, right? I'll like add details and stuff as I go, but a lot of the stuff that I'll do really is like it really is me just kind of like just doing whatever it takes to get the job done, right? So like, yeah, even stuff like this, I just kind of joined it all together, and like, it might cause problems down the line, but at the end of the day, it's like, that's what the 3D team's for. I even talked to the 3D team. So, when I went back to LA, I met up with some friends and stuff, and you know, it's just a running joke when I see a modeler and I go, oh, hey, yeah, you know, it was great working with you or whatever. And then I said, oh, I'm so sorry for the models, man, you know, cause I know I'm bad at it. And he's like, no, it's cool, man. That's why I'm there. You know, they're usually pretty chill about it. They're usually like, because usually the way he told me was, he was like, you know, they'll use models if they're good, right? If they're pretty solid, they'll go for it, right? But they're like, if it's really truly that bad, they'll just remodel it. It does, because they're so fast at it. They're like, yeah, it's whatever, you know. We figure it out. It's usually not that big a deal for them to kind of get that done. So that was cool to hear. They said they really liked it. Yeah, it looks better. I like that one better. Here's a logo or something on there. That's kind of cool. Dude, check it out.
Kind of the opposite.
Go ahead.
Kind of the opposite problem. I end up putting too much time into 3D and end up getting asked if I want to move on to the 3D team instead.
Be like,
Not a bad problem to have, but still.
Yeah, you tell them no. I'm a concept artist. They get paid more.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, it's weird. I think, and it's funny too. I actually I had this crit a couple of times, not to you specifically or anybody, but like it was funny because I was doing crits, and especially this time around, there's so much 3D going around, and like I'd be looking at the portfolio, and it's like straight up 3D, right? And it's like, oh, I'm like, so what do you want to do? I'm like, oh, I want to be a concept artist. I'm like, okay, cool. So we're looking at the thing, and then like I'm just going through it, and then I'm going through the portfolio, and then the keyframes, super high quality, right? It's like better than what I could do because it's all 3D. It's very well done. Has that like 3D look to it, right? Which is fine. And then they do a call out, and then sometimes they have to like draw and stuff on the call out and stuff like that to really kind of show the rest of it. You know what I'm saying? And so it was interesting because I would have to tell them, it's like, so you're in this weird in between because chances are your model isn't good enough to be a modeler, right? Because they have to UV, they have to optimize, they have to do all sorts of shit, right? Also stuff I'm not even aware of, right? So they're doing all these things that most concept artists wouldn't even dream of needing to do, right? Because that's a whole different job. But you're not really concepting either because your ideas are really loose and not really that great, and you know what I mean. And then the call outs and stuff that you do aren't really high enough quality for a modeler to even use. And so I tell them, like, you're in this weird in between of like, you're not really a good modeler because you're probably missing a lot of stuff in that portfolio to show that. And then you're not really a good concept artist because you're not showing any concept art either, right? You have it backwards because what we need out of a concept artist is the ability to show detail and how things are built, right? And you can do that with one painter, you can do that with 10. But the whole point is we're here to inform the next person in line. We're not really here to model. That's not our goal, you know? And it was a lot of that.
This is the exact problem I run into.
Yeah, right? It's crazy because, it feels like, you'll have this image that looks really good, but then I guess once you start realizing like what it is that we actually do, you start realizing like, oh, okay, I guess that does make a lot of sense. It is something where maybe you need to kind of like, I guess do a little more drawing or whatever, but it sucks because that's how, like, you, technically speaking, right? Most portfolios that you compare to, it looks pretty good. Most people, it's like, wow, that painting looks beautiful, but then you actually look at like the meat of that concept, right? And it's like there's not really anything, there's not really much there to kind of, I guess use to hand off to like the animation team or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been super helpful going back and doing a bunch of basic drawing exercises now. Even just drawing a bunch of cubes. I feel way more confident with just general design tasks now.
Nice.
I should have done it years ago.
It's cool. I think
better late than never.
It's cool. Like whenever I see artists, like there's this weird thing that happens. So when a student starts, they start doing boxes, and then they start like they're doing all the basic stuff, right? They're like cutting out holes, extruding, and inserts and whatever. You know what I mean? Doing all those things. This is Viscom 1 essentially, right? And then they're like, cool, I know how to do that. They graduate, they move on to doing the next thing, whatever that is, right? And then they keep climbing that ladder. There's this funny thing that happens that I see it from the artist like the advanced artists that are most likely to make it, right? Like make it isn't like they're pretty close to working. I see it where they'll go back to boxes again. And when I see that, I'm like, oh, they're on the verge of something. You know, it's really odd, but it happens to where like there's something about it to where they there it is. They'll figure out something. So something finally clicks. And then they're like, oh shit. Yeah, I probably need to go back to my boxes, you know? And then they do it, and then just boom, you know, something happens. I have a friend, we worked together for a long time, right? And he was fine, you know, there's nothing like truly wrong with his design skills, right? There's gaps for sure. But overall, he was fine, right? And then he just went back to doing boxes and freaking line drawings. And then I'm like, what the fuck happened? Like, I think it was like 6 months later, you know? Same with another friend. You know, he was doing designs and stuff like normal. We were in school. And then all of a sudden, right, you see him doing like daily boxes, just box drawings and whatever, you know what I mean? Like the easy, like things that, you know, students do, right? And I'm like, you're not a student anymore, or you're not like, you know, you're pretty good to where you don't really need to worry about that anymore, you know? But then, like, I don't know, 6 months later, it was incredible. It was cool seeing how good these artists become. And like, I promise you, for those of you like trying to get better, and you have to do it with an honest intention. You can't just be like, all right, I'm gonna draw boxes and a job's popping out of this. It doesn't really work that way, you know? It's the mindset that people get into. They understand why these boxes are important. They understand what this drawing is supposed to do and supposed to mean. That's what happens, you know? But yeah, it's a funny thing. We always jump back to doing our most basic things, and it's a big deal. I find that it's super helpful for most people. I think for me, I've had that a couple times where I just felt like I really wasn't, like the newer skill really wasn't getting me to where I was going. And so I needed to kind of step back and make some sort of adjustment, you know, and usually it's my drawing skills. So I have phases in my learning career where I'm just drawing. Like I'll do just a ton of drawings, right? I've even posted it a couple times in the Discord where I'll just start drawing more and more often. That's where like some of these things came from. Where's it at? Like this lantern thing here. I did like 10 of them during that round, you know? This is just the one I decided to keep, but I was posting a lot of those, and that was just me just learning how to draw again, right? Just pushing that skill set. Yeah, I'm not the best draftsman in the world, right? But I'm good enough to do what I need to do. But it like did something to my understanding, right? And that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, I've done box exercises before, but I don't know, I was just doing boxes for the sake of doing boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I've worked for a couple of years and have a bit of experience, I kind of just studying with a bit more purpose.
Yeah.
I don't think I could say exactly what it is that I know that I want to learn, but I can just critique my stuff better, I guess. Maybe that's why I'm getting more out of it.
Yeah. Like you're at a different level now, right? You understand more. Something else clicked. And I mean, that happens a lot, right? Like there's times where maybe in a class, the teacher will say something and you're like, you know, like you understand what they're saying, but maybe you don't quite get it yet. You know what I'm saying? Like you're just not at the level yet to where they said something. And even here, right? Even when I say some things, a lot of people, it might go over your head as to what I'm saying because you're just not ready yet. But like, just remember it. Just remember it. Hold on to it. Once you get to, once we come back to doing this, when you get to that level, right? You're like, oh, I get that. You know, I do that all the time. Like I still do that to this day where like, there's something that somebody said 10 years ago where I'm like I still remember it, right? You know, I'll be like, oh yeah, they did say something like that, right? Oh yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. Cause they were 10 years ahead of me and they were probably going through that, right? A lot of the stuff that I say here is me learning things either on the job, for freelance, for, you know, whatever. And then I'm just saying it here and I'm just talking shit and doing whatever. And then, you know, 5-10 years from now, when you guys are, I guess, in a similar point in your career, you'll be like, oh, that's why he said that, right? So Ian says, can you give me an example of these box drawings? I'm not following. Oh, it's just these box drawings. These aren't my drawings. This is Google, but like not like physical boxes. These. A better version, but that's the idea. You know what I'm saying? It's just like drawing more. And then, because, okay, so this is the thing, right? The different levels that people go through. Level 1, right? You're actually focusing on perspective, right? It's like you put down a 1-point perspective grid, 2-point, 3-point, whatever, right? Level 1 is, I don't know what perspective is. Let me figure that out. So you're actually like connecting dots and you're going back in space. You're doing this stuff, right? That's what that is, right? That's level 1. Generally speaking, pretty easy. Most of us learn that pretty quickly, right? It's just a rule set. You know, you start understanding like the cone of vision and all that stuff, but generally speaking, it's pretty easy. Level 2 is then you start arranging the boxes in a better way, right? Where it's like, you know, you start clustering them in a more appealing fashion, right? Where like you'll have a bigger box and you have some medium boxes, you have some small boxes, and the arrangement starts looking a lot nicer, right? So now you're not actually thinking about perspective anymore. You're thinking about grouping and clustering and design breakdown, big, medium, small, right? Because you're probably at level 2, you've went through the, you know, I'm just making up level names, but you know, at level quote unquote 2, you've kind of gone through some design courses. You probably have some form language under you. You have world building 1, stuff like that. And then now you're back again. Now you're like, okay, well, I learned the gauntlet of what I need to learn. Now I need to get better at it, right? So level 2 is, you already know perspective. So how do you do this better? Usually clustering, usually understanding design breakdowns. And that's where a lot of people are, where it's like, you're learning how to place things in a more appealing fashion, right? When I arrange these shapes, you know, when I put these shapes, it could be here, it could be here, it could be here. I can split that in half. I can make it more even, right? There's reasons why I do some of these things, right? Because let's say, for example, if I did this, right now, 1, 2, 3 shapes, those 3 shapes become very even stacked, and it creates this 1, 2, 3, 4 even bars going all the way down the thing. When I saw that, I was like, oh, I don't really like that. Let me bring this down so this middle section becomes bigger and that small section right there becomes smaller. So now I have 2 and then 2 different size bands, right? So now I'm arranging shapes in different proportions and this and that, but it's the same understanding. You're learning how to arrange, right? That's level 2. Level 3, you've kind of gone through the thing again, and then you start drawing again. You start arranging these boxes, but then you start doing it in a way that maybe compositionally says something. This box feels big, so you arrange it bigger and taller in the composition, and then you put smaller boxes underneath, right? Because now you already know how to make scenes, but now you're creating this sense of like, oh, maybe this is big Star Destroyer, and then these just little ships underneath, right? But you're just representing it with boxes, right? So yes, like, you know, it is a perspective exercise, but the level that you do it at changes your mindset around the box. Don't just do boxes. Don't just think that I know how to make lines, and so I'm going to I know how to make lines that go back in space, so that's easy, right? That's not what you're doing anymore. You're taking the understanding of something so basic as perspective and trying to improve on it in a more meaningful way. Does that make sense? So technically speaking, it is about boxes, but it's not really, you know what I'm saying? So hopefully that makes sense. I think it should make sense. Yeah, exactly. A reevaluation of the foundation of the art. Exactly. Because before, you weren't really good enough to like be able to process those things. You were just learning perspective. You know, you were just learning how to do the damn box, right? How to do it consistently with the correct line weights, all those things, right? Because there's already so much information, right? It's just like, you know, when you tell someone to catch 10 things in the air, they're going to miss all of them. If you say, hey, throw 10 balls in the air, catch all 10, there's a really high chance they're going to miss all 10 of them, right? And so what we do is we say, hey, throw 10 in the air, right? Just start drawing to do it. You know, there's a lot of things going on. Focus on one, grab the one, right? Usually it's perspective, the easiest ball to catch, the most basic one, right? It's like, just catch that one. Let everything else drop. But then when you do it again, you can catch perspective, and then you can catch design, right? Design breakdown, big, medium, and small, the foundation of designing, right? And so you're like, cool, grab those two. And eventually, as you level up over and over again, you're able to process more and more information, because now you're not really focusing on perspective. You're just doing it. And then you're able to like focus on other things. And that other thing that you're focusing on becomes the important thing. You know what I'm saying? So. Yeah, hopefully that makes sense. But also, like, you know, when I was doing those drawings for myself, right? Let's see, hold up. When I was doing these drawings, right? A lot of it was, okay, I know how to draw this. It's not that hard to draw. It's just like this stone lantern, and then it's like, you know what I mean? It's just a thing. It's whatever. And so it's really not that difficult to draw this if you saw it and drew it like in Viscom, you know, big, you know, thick line weights, thin line weights, draw through this and that, measure out, right? You can do that. That's pretty easy. It's not that I was focusing on. Now it's what else can I communicate? Because when you communicate with Viscom, just the basic line weights exercise, right? All you get is form when you're trying to design with line weights. You only have what's in front, what's in behind, how is it constructed, right? You only have those forms. But now, using just line, how do I communicate texture and lighting? Right? Because usually with painting is where you do those things, right? So now it's like I'm using a basic tool that I have in my, like just a pen in this case, right? And I'm trying to communicate more information because I'm still communicating volume, right? It's still there. But now it's how do I communicate lighting as well as texture with just line? I don't have a different color. I have black or white, right? When you're drawing with a pen, there's no, especially what I was using. I think I was using a fountain pen for this one, but you don't really have a different color to use. I can't use light gray to help show lighting. I can't use a different, you know, texture sized brush to, you know, to indicate those ideas, right? So all I have is black or white at a very fixed size. It has to be exactly what the pen is putting down, right? And so how do I communicate those other ideas? And that's what I was trying to learn here, right? I did this, I did like 10, 15 other more. And, you know, I was getting into a better groove with it all. But just the understanding is I'm no longer focusing on the same ideas, you know? So, because like drawings like this, for example, right? Like this was a demo I did for one of my mentorships a long time ago. This is purely just Viscom, right? There's no texture. There's no lighting involved here. There's just form and line weights, right? Because the forms and line weights tell us what's in front or what's behind, and that's fine, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But it's a very basic way to draw, right? So how do you draw with a little bit more information? How do you communicate more? You don't have to do it, but it is something that it helps you kind of grow and helps you understand what image making really is about, and how do you communicate at the most basic of forms or most basic of materials, right? Because if you can't do that with lines, it's really hard to do that with painting or really anything else, right? So, damn, look at this guy. He's looking sick. He's looking spiffy. I wanted to. I'm trying to bring in other chefy ideas, right? I might create some more shapes to kind of make that happen. But I was looking at like some of the buttons that happen on chef uniforms. It's funny, I can't find one right now. But yeah, here it is. I'm trying to copy like that button idea, the rolled up sleeve, and then, you know, the more traditional Japanese chef idea, right? And so like I'm trying to just create shapes that do that, right? And it doesn't have to be a physical button. It could just be like a screw, it could be whatever. But the whole point being, I'm trying to include more shapes that help me understand what this thing is supposed to be. And hopefully by the end of this, right, I'm gonna have a more flushed out table with the understanding of kind of what these things are, right? So let me delete this one. Oops. So now, right, I kind of have, I guess, a decent amount of information present here, right? Now I can probably start. Geez, I did the Photoshop move. I can probably start doing some of this stuff with like the other areas, right? So I'm just gonna take this. I have it all grouped together. Duplicate collection. Select objects. Boom. Let's do that. Rotate. Get them right there. Rotate. Shift D. Rotate. Right. Now we have our kitchen. Right. Pretty easy. Hopefully this makes sense. This is going to be, I'm going to kind of continue this throughout the week. Just like usual, I'm going to take this design just a bit further. Are they missing legs? I'll fix that later. Hopefully with this understanding, you can kind of see where I'm going with a lot of these design choices, right? A lot of these things, you can kind of design it however you want, but little form language cues like that really do make a big deal, right? You can really help inform the audience on certain things, on certain functions and intentions, right? Without really doing that much, right? So now it's like, you know, even without the context of where he is, you kind of start getting an idea of what this thing is about. You know what I'm saying? And maybe I might kind of like shrink the torso down because he feels kind of like heroic right now. If you kind of make that smaller. Why is that duplicated? Oh, here you go. Hold up. Turn that off. There we go. Cool. Yeah, so like, you know, if I have this, he feels kind of heroic now, but if I kind of shrink that down a little bit, you know, maybe it looks a little bit more appropriate for like the kind of vibe I'm trying to get from this robot, right? So scale Y, sick. A, move that inwards. Right now his demeanor kind of changed. He's just a little skinnier, right? I mean, you know, whether it's right or wrong, who knows? But we're getting there, right? So with your designs, right, just remember, right, we're trying to communicate ideas. We're trying to push things across that are a little more subtle, right? It's not always about trying to, I guess, just model everything exactly, right? We want to make decisions that subtly hint at the choices that we need to make, the things that we need to describe. So in this case, right, I have certain ideas associated with my thing. Just the fact that it's a robot versus a person, right, says a lot about what's going on here. And then, you know, all those other things kind of associated with that idea, right? Things that we talked about during the stream. And so now I'm going to take that idea and then kind of incorporate it into everything, right? And so the stools, the bar, the trays, things that they're using, the tools. Hopefully I can make some more of this. I am getting kind of busy right now. The end of the year does get pretty busy for me. But I'm gonna try my best to kind of model some of that out. And then next week, we're gonna get into lighting this and kind of setting up our camera and everything, and hopefully getting a render out that's in a pretty good spot, and we'll kind of push that lighting and color aspect a little bit further, right? But I'll show you how you do that whenever we get there. Cool. Any questions at all? Go. Cool, guys. Well, if that's the case, thanks for hanging out this week. I'll have updates on this as we go. Again, we do have a book that just released. Let me go back to it's not my 10th time going on the website. So if you go to my website, if you are interested in this book, please, support the artists that contributed to this book. But if you go to my website, go to shop, you'll see the book there. You can buy it, $25. Proceeds go to the artist featured here. So we're gonna, this is just a way to kind of support them, right? The idea behind, for those that missed it, the idea behind this book is to showcase what each individual artist has to contribute past skill, right? It's not about your ability to draw and paint. It's mostly about what kind of ideas and influences kind of shape and mold your project. You've seen me do that so many times. Just the fact that the robot looks the way it does, and some of the ideas kind of associated with this place is because of I'm literally like playing games right now. I'm like experiencing things. I'm watching TV, this and that. And I was like, oh, that'd be kind of a fun idea. And you just kind of run with it, right? And so for me, I really wanted to showcase that and showed other artists like what that really means, right? So definitely check out this book. There's some samples here if you want to kind of check that out. Some really good information. I'm really proud of the work that they put into it. They put a ton of work, and hopefully it shows. But yeah, so it's on my shop. You can check it out there. It's going to be there for the foreseeable future, right? It's 132 pages, so a pretty thick book. And there's a ton of words in there, like a ton of information, from step-by-step things to things that kind of breaking down why something looks the way it does, right? If you're having trouble designing, if you're having trouble understanding what we do as environment artists or as world builders or entertainment designers, this is a really strong book to get. I couldn't recommend it enough. So with that in mind, that's all I got. Actually, Ian says, do you have any physical copies of the books? I don't. So we sold out. So we sold these books at Lightbox. For those that don't know, I did a small run of these books at Lightbox, and we sold out. We sold out like literally like the second day. So I do want to do another physical copy sometime in the future, but as of right now, I can't, just because I can't hold on to that much product, essentially. I can't have that much here, essentially. So it's really hard for me to sell physical books for now. I can't promise that I won't sell it in the future. At the moment, I just don't know. So for now, it's just a digital book, and then I guess I'll announce more if that time comes in the future. So cool. All right, guys. Well, with that in mind, thanks for hanging out, and week 2's done. So we have 3 more weeks left. 2 more design weeks where we're gonna be actually like painting and stuff. The last one's more of a Q&A and kind of a hangout. So I'll probably be painting as we talk through that, right? Just to kind of fill up the screen and do stuff. But yeah, just keep that in mind. We're approaching the end of the year. So thanks for hanging out, guys. I'll see you next week.